Well, we've been in this series of Jesus Quotes Scripture, which sounds kind of funny, but that's really what it's about, is looking at different places where Jesus quoted the Scriptures, what were the conditions and all that kind of stuff. And so we started with a Scripture unique to Luke, and then we went to a Scripture 2 weeks ago that was in all three synoptic Gospels from on Palm Sunday. My house shall be called a house of prayer. So we were in that, and we're kind of continuing from there, because in Matthew, it's unique in Matthew that Jesus quotes Psalm 8. So we're going to be in Matthew 21. Would you read verses 12 through 17? Part of this we read 2 weeks ago. It's the Palm Sunday passage from Matthew. So it's going to repeat what he said, quoted from Isaiah 56 and all that kind of stuff. But then it's going to go into the unique quote from Psalm 8.
And Jesus entered the temple and drove out all those who were buying and selling in the temple, and overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who were selling doves. And he said to them, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a robber's den." And the blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he healed them. But when the chief priests and the scribes saw the wonderful things that he had done, and the children who were shouting in the temple, "Hosanna to the Son of David," they became indignant. And he said to him, "Do you hear what these children are saying?" And Jesus said to them, "Yes, have you not read, out of the mouths of infants and nursing babes you have prepared praise for yourself?" And he left them and went out of the city to Bethany and spent the night there.
The point is, this particular quote is prompted by a question. It's not like some of the other ones where Jesus quotes the Scripture. Here it's actually prompted by this question: do you hear what they're saying? And we can kind of imagine ourselves in that situation there, but I do often wonder if we don't fall into that Pharisees category, where we wonder, do you see what's going on? Do you hear what's going on? We may not actually say that to God, do you see what's going on? But we are wondering, because something is going on, and we're wondering if he's even paying attention, kind of thing. He answers the question blatantly, yes. So he does. He said it right. You read it in there. He says yes. They say, do you hear what you see? Yes. The question is not whether I see what's going on, but do you know what's going on? And that answer is no. And that it's the beauty and the wonder of Jesus. I absolutely love the way he handles these situations. He sees and hears. Apparently, we're the ones that don't see and hear. Gloria, would you go to Mark chapter 12, verse 24? It's one verse that you guys have heard before. When he says back to them, "Have you not read?" He's not being rude. He's just saying, because he knows they have, actually. Have you not read? There's kind of like an implication there. And then he quotes Psalm 8. Have you not read Psalm 8? Or at least that verse. In Mark 12:24, Jesus says...
Jesus answers to them, "Do you not therefore err, because you know not the Scriptures, neither the power of God?"
Now, this is another time where Jesus is saying... The word error there, in the Greek, it actually means to roam or to wander, to go away from, to stray from safety, from truth, from virtue, whatever. It has that context that when he says, "Don't you err," aren't you all screwed up because you've actually wandered away from the Word itself, the Scriptures? And so now you're asking me if I'm paying attention. Yeah, I'm fully paying attention. You guys are the ones that, for whatever reason, thought you'd listen to him, or her, or whatever it might be. So we have the same context here. When he turns to them and says, "Yeah, I'm paying attention. Why have you wandered from the Word, and now you don't know what's going on?" That's really the issue here. And he quotes Psalm 8. He doesn't quote the whole Psalm. He just takes part of the second verse of Psalm 8. Would you read verse 16 again, when he quotes the Scripture?
And said to him, "Do you hear what these children are saying?" And Jesus said to them, "Yes. Have you never read, out of the mouths of infants and nursing babes you have prepared praise for yourself?"
And what does Psalm 8, verse 2, the first half say?
"From the mouth of infants and nursing babes thou hast established strength."
So depending on what you read, you're going to... Psalm 8 might say ordained strength, established strength, whatever. Matthew says you have perfected praise, prepared praise. It doesn't sound like the exact same quote. It is, but it doesn't sound like it. I mean, they're really different words when you just put them side by side. And different Bible scholars say a lot of different things about that. A lot of them say, well, the Old Testament, when it was written in Greek, it's called the Septuagint, and instead of saying ordained strength, they said perfected praise, and Jesus is, the New Testament is written in Greek. They go through all of these explanations, when the truth is, basically, Jesus is not misquoting Scripture, he's revealing a greater truth of what really is behind that Scripture. When you look at it that way, and you compare the Greek and the Hebrew, which we're not going to get into a big Greek-Hebrew thing, but in the Hebrew, when it's talking about ordaining strength, it means that he's laid a foundation that we can build on, so that we end up with something strong. He's established a platform of strength to build something strong. And basically what's happening is that we receive our strength from God to glorify him. Which makes it kind of sad when you think about the strength that we receive from God and all those things that we do with it. That, to be honest with you, is bringing more glory to somebody else, ourselves, to anything. And yet, he's actually given us this strength so that we can glorify him. Now that doesn't mean standing around and doing this kind of thing. It means you helping your neighbor. That's glorifying him. The things that we're involved with, that we are showing forth the strength that he's given us to glorify him. And throughout the Old Testament, the word praise isn't as much associated with singing and dancing and all that like we want it to be, but that's not it. Throughout the Old Testament, when it talks about giving praise to God, it's saying people have received strength from him, and in return, they are showing forth that strength by praising him, by glorifying him. It wasn't just a prayer, Lord be glorified. They did glorify him on the earth. When you put that with the New Testament, where the idea of perfecting praise, it's not even close to what we would think. If I asked you what you thought perfecting praise was, I think we'd probably think in terms of some kind of expression of singing and all. And it's nothing. It has nothing to do with that. Absolutely nothing. It has to do with repairing or making an adjustment. It's the same word, perfected, when he calls the boys to come and follow him, and they were mending their nets. It's the same word. So he's talking about mending, repairing, making adjustments. And actually the word praise, what it means in Greek is a story. When you think of it that way, it says, wait a minute. So this doesn't really have anything to do with them singing as much as what they're actually doing. The singing is irrelevant. What they're doing is getting the story right. They're repairing a story that has been broken down. Now, I'm all for, we spend time on Sunday mornings here together worshiping God and singing and doing whatever. But that is not what this is about. Although it looks like it, because there's kids singing. And he's saying, no. My original design was to pour myself out into a people who would glorify me, to strengthen them so that they would be able to strengthen others and show forth the virtue and the strength that I've poured into them. That was my original design, and that has not happened. And these kids on Palm Sunday, when they're singing and praising God, it isn't that act of singing. It's what they're actually demonstrating, that they are repairing the story that has broken down. It's very interesting. But again, Jesus is not even just pointing to that half of a verse. He quotes that, but we're going to see as we get further and further into this series. Do you remember last time when we were in Isaiah, when we went to Isaiah 56 and Jeremiah 7, that he was pointing to bigger passages of Scripture? He's pointing to chapters, he's pointing to books, that kind of thing. So here, it's not so much just the little verse that he's talking about, but it's like he just did with Isaiah 56 and Jeremiah 7. He's not just pointing to a little verse, he's pointing to Psalm 8. Have you not read Psalm 8? Not just that one little verse, although that little verse pertains totally to what's happening at the moment. He's pointing to Psalm 8. Now, if you don't know Psalm 8, I mean, if someone doesn't know Psalm 8, it's relatively meaningless. You're going to walk away with this little thing, have you not read, out of the mouths and babes and suckling, he has perfected praise. This kind of thing. That's what you're going to walk away with instead of saying, no, there's a lot more going on there. And that's what he's actually pointing to. Just like Isaiah 56, Jeremiah 7. It's sort of like on the cross. Remember when he says, my God, why have you forsaken me? And everybody says, well, there you go, God forsook him. No, he didn't forsake him. If you read Psalm 22, which is the psalm that he's quoting, you find out later on, David says, but he didn't forsake me. He was there all the time, but I sure felt like rubbish, to be honest with you. I felt like he did take the back door out when I needed him the most. That's why I don't mind saying it for the world and everybody else. I absolutely hate that interpretation. And I hate when people say that. Well, God couldn't stand to look upon sin. Well, then he's not looking at any of us now. I mean, hello? It just gets downright stupid after a while. It just gets downright stupid. Jesus points to a psalm that says, I know you feel like this sometimes, but I didn't, and I'm with you. I am with you. Don't ever forget that. I will never leave you or forsake you. It's that kind of situation. He's pointing to something bigger. He's pointing to Psalm 8. Now, the people in that temple, those Pharisees and religious leaders, were better than we are in knowing when you hear Psalm 8. Can anybody here quote all of Psalm 8 from memory? Do you know it? I doubt it. I can't. And if I can't, you can. No. Anyway, no, we probably can't. I think the only psalm that I can quote from beginning to end, word for word, is Psalm 23. After that, I can tell you a lot about a lot of psalms, but I don't know. I can't do it. These guys could. When he said Psalm 8, they would have started from the very beginning. O Lord, our God, how majestic is your name in all the earth. You have set your glory above the heavens and your name upon the earth. Jesus is still talking about temple. He went to the temple